Howdy, all you delicious people. I'm here today to review the Book of Boba Fett, Season 1, Episode 7. So, the one thing that I have to kind of eventually be relieved about this Season 2, of course, coming to an end, sadly, is really, I did have a lot of fun with this last episode. I did have some points in me where like I was saying, man, this is a lot of fun. Of course, they go in certain directions because it feels like they didn't go into that earlier. So it feels like it's all coming down to this one thing that they were saying that they were going to do at some point, and now they're doing here. Uh, Really, the only downside to this season overall is it feels that there was too much of me thinking of when Jacksepticeye was watching the Minecraft series and he was going on, oh, that's a Minecraft, wait, that's a Minecraft over there, oh my god, more Minecraft. I feel like I'm the exact same for this show overall, where it's like, oh my god, that's a Star Wars, oh my god, that's a Star Wars, that's a Star Wars right there. Yeah, Star Wars. Ooh, yeah, Star Wars. I feel like the exact same thing with this show, and I shouldn't. There should not have been such as a importance to try to push so many things in this show. Uh, but and so I'm hoping that they've kind of gotten that out of their system. I would love to hope, because we still have another Obi-Wan Kenobi show that's supposedly coming somewhere down the pipeline. So I'm hoping that show isn't exactly what this was, where it's like, oh wait, Star Wars, oh wait, Star Wars, No, please, for the love of God, no. Just make it a normal freaking show that you're trying not to sell something. I get it that Baby Yoda was something that after the fact they missed out so much things that they could have merchandised, but they did it after the fact. They merchandised out of it after the fact, and they have made a ton of money with the merchandising of the Mandalorian and just the Book of Boba Fett altogether. So hopefully we just don't have another Star Wars show that's like that, or I will just lose my I'll just lose my interest in Star Wars. I'll just be like, man, I just want to sit back and just enjoy the journey instead of seeing where the references are coming from. I just don't care. It's not. I don't like the commercialization of it. It's garbage. I just want to have fun in this show. Um, and I felt like I had fun in this last episode because it feels like everything was all set up. Uh, and to just kind of leave off with us just going oh, okay, now we're going to go on and see where possibly another season of Mandalorian is going to head, and where we're going to go on with possibly a certain number of characters. Uh, this really has no tie with Obi-Wan Kenobi and what he's doing. So of course that'll kind of leave us in the hopefully the utter darkness of what's going on with that show until we get trailers or until we get some kind of something out of it. Where I think a lot of people are going on and saying oh yeah, we should get a bunch of flashbacks of Obi-Wan and Anakin, and we should get a bunch of flashbacks of all the stuff leading up to any number of the prequels, and we should showcase a young Obi-Wan doing what he's doing and blah blah. And I'll just be like, man, okay, sure, yeah, let's do all of that. Let's cover some stuff that we didn't cover before in the past of Obi-Wan or Ben. But yeah, so with that said, we really have it. We're teeing it up now. We of course seem to have the both Mando, Fett, and all the kind of, let's just say, the Fett people we have them kind of really outnumbered in this episode to the point where of course the Spike Syndicate just continues to stack the deck against them. And we really have it to where there is no assuredness that the Freetown people are to come to the evade of seemingly both Fett and Mando here. We of course seem to have it where Grogu is to possibly be in this show, one way or the other, let's just say. And so we also have it where there seems to be some uh, interesting things that was kind of to be foreshadowed in other episodes that are going to be used here. Because, of course, if they spent a lot of time saying that they were going to do something to not show one lick of it in any part of these episodes because of time, now is the episode to just kind of toss this out here. And all of a sudden, when I'm kind of seeing this in this episode, I'm like, well, of course, we're going that direction because we didn't go anywhere with it in the other episodes because Mando and Luke and all these other things that kind of took up so much time that it's just like, okay, since this is actually to be the Boba Fett story at the end of this, because I'm like, man, the one thing about this show is we kind of lost track of the fact that like we lost track of our title character. That's the thing that I did not like about this show, is we focused so much about how Boba Fett was to get to where he was, and then after that wrapped up, it was like, okay, let's do other stories. We want to push another Mandalorian season, or we want to push another thing of this, and I'm like, wait a minute, what? Why do we have to push that in this show so much? Why do we have to push that in this show so hard? Why not just have it be that like that Boba Fett has his own story, and you have that whole thing being done in Mandalorian season 3? It doesn't matter that we have to go on and be like, well, we have to show what's going on with Mando right now, and we have to go on and have it be that we have to showcase how like Mando had gotten like, and plus also a lot of people are like, well, all those people, it all mattered, and plus I'm sure a lot of people are like, well, hey, I was much more excited with the Mando episodes than the Boba Fett stuff. I get it. Like, really, there's a lot more characters that you would have wanted to have seen again, but still, it's just like, this is the Boba Fett story. Like, it doesn't matter if just like Mandalorian just shows up in one episode and teams up with Boba Fett. You don't have to justify the whole ring-a-rung of the story of how the Mandalorian has to go on that way. But like, if Boba Fett shows up in the Mandalorian show and then all of a sudden it becomes like the Boba Fett story, then I'd be like, oh, okay. So like, considering like Mando did that in this show, like let's go on and just have like the Boba Fett story in the Mando show. Like, I'll be fine with that. Just have it be that like, oh, Boba Fett just has something more important going on. Because I guess we can just start playing with these characters and uh, just kind of having them go on and just kind of intermixing with one another to have this a much more exciting show. But with that said, let's go into that double five time territory. Let's just go into that double five. Let's otherwise say it's about that time. Again, to go into spoiler time, it's about that time I'm going to spoil this episode. I will admit that considering this is the last episode of this season, I am not going to be as heavily detailed as I was before. Just because really, like, the views have really just showcased to me why bother. Just like, if I was getting like at least like 10 views of a video of this, like, I was just like, man, I should have been severely detailed every single time. But like, it just feels like this is yet another Disney show that it's like, why do I have to be detailed? This is the last rigmarole of this. I can be as vague as I want. Especially this time around when I realized, like, okay, this was a mistake to be so detailed. 'Cause you have to take so much time out of your day to research all this. Why not just plop all this down? So speaking of plopping, So we go on, and we of course are to realize that Cobb Bane was to go on and kill, or yeah, Cobb Bane was to go on and kill, of course, uh, Vanth and the deputy from Freetown. And so now we, of course, go on and have Freetown. We're not really sure if they're going to go on and help out these characters. We go on and we have Boba Fett and Mando and Fennec who are all at these ruins. And they're just trying to figure out, like, okay, like, how exactly are we going to make our last stand against the Pike Syndicate? Because the Pike Syndicate is going to want to go and create all out war. And so we of course have the Pikes that are eventually starting to figure out that they're going to ambush uh, all of the characters that are actually on Fett's side. We of course have the mod characters that are going on and getting outnumbered by these Aqualish uh, aliens. They're going on and trying to take down these mod kids in their little in their little bike gang. We go on and we of course have Black Chrysanta that's kind of going on and kind of seeing the Pike Syndicate are going to be anywhere near, and all of a sudden he ends up getting attacked by a bunch of Trenosians, Trenosians, Trenogians, the characters that Black Chrysanthemum has had a problem with before within that bar, and he starts to beat them up because of the history that he has held with them. And so we also have it where, of course, Boba Fett is to have his Gamorrean guards being attacked by uh, the Clutunians, of course, the characters that we had saw in the Mandalorian episode, that of course were to be like bountied and whatever. And so these guys go after uh, the the Gamorrean uh, guard guys, and these guys end up getting so overpowered they get knocked off this cliff and they fall to their deaths. So sad. I'm sure everybody was like, no, out of seeing those characters die, because it didn't really matter out of uh, the whole true story of things. So we go into this story, and so the Pike Syndicate are going on and having Cobb Bane, and so Cod Bane is going on to meet with Boba Fett, and so Boba Fett comes out to meet Cod Bane, and Cod Bane is telling Boba Fett here to not expect the Freetown people to come and save him or help him or whatever, because Cod Bane was to go on and kill off uh, both Vanth and his deputy, and so it's like, yeah, because we of course had Mando that's talking to Boba Fett, and Boba Fett is asking Mando, it's like, well, hey, like, what price do these people want for helping us out? And Mando's like, well, I think they'll do it for free. It's like, really? It's like, yeah. So, because like Mando had helped them out before, so I guess it's like the whole like getting even thing when Mando is to help them go and take down with the Tusken Raiders their monstrous things. So I guess to get even, like the Freetown people are helping out, or are going to help out Mando later in this episode, because they're going to showcase themselves. Big surprise, because they go on and they say that since Vanth had died, they thought it was the right thing to go on and help these people because that was like a disgraceful way for this guy to just get gunned down the way he did. So, because we go on, we have like Cod Bane going and talking to Vanth and mentioning that, like, well, hey, like, you're gonna miss that armor that you no longer have. You're gonna get killed here. So we also go on and had Cod Bane tell us somewhere in this episode that supposedly it was the Nikto gang that Boba Fett thought was to be the killer of his people, but instead it wasn't that at all. That it was actually the Pike Syndicate, and they left a message thinking that it was the Nikto gang, which it wasn't. It was actually the Pike Syndicate going and taking these Tusken Raiders down. And so Boba Fett doesn't know that, but eventually he will at some point. So, and there's some justification what Boba Fett does to Cod Bane towards the end of this episode. So we go on. We eventually have the Pike Syndicate that is going on and is gonna try to take down both Mando and Boba Fett. After we have the Mayor Domo coming up with his idea to just like, well, hey, like, how about we go and just have you guys surrender, and like we'll go and negotiate like what we can do to try to get you guys out of here. And Boba Fett's like, oh, great idea. And so Boba Fett is now signing over this whole thing. And so the Mayor Domo goes out there to speak with the Pike Syndicate, just like, hey, like these guys are waving the white flag, and like we want to make a negotiation here. And so the Mayor Domo starts reading this negotiation thing where he's going on and kind of distracting these guys as both Mando and Boba are kind of getting set up here. So the Mayor Domo is going on and saying it's like, well, these guys will wager nothing to you. And then he's like, oh, like, and that he wants you to leave this place and all this kind of stuff. And he's reading all this and he's like, oh crap, like these people are going to shoot me, and it looks like they are. So all of a sudden, Boba Fett and Mando are starting to take down these Pike Syndicates, and it seems like they're really getting pelted with all of these blasters, to where it's like, man, so like we have this kind of weird conundrum within the show of like how powerful are these blasters for a number of characters that are just obviously getting hit with them. Like, because we'd have to make conclusions that I guess some blasters would kill people, and some people like, did these Pike Syndicate people weirdly just have like this whole like this stunning blaster thing? Because in my mind, I'm just thinking of Black Chrysanthemum, how like Black Chrysanthemum is just getting pelted with these lasers, and he's not like dead. But I guess you can just kind of carve this up as like, well, technically he was wounded, technically he was injured, but not really killed because they didn't go and get to his vital organs and whatever. Luckily enough, because these guys are crappy shots, as we would have gone on to make jokes about that with like stormtroopers in episodes 4 through 6, where it's like, man, those stormtroopers suck at blasting. Man, they really just are god awful. And then we go on and have it where like a number of like Clone War or whatever kind of characters that are always to have these like these outfits and whatever are always to be bad at shooting anyways. So either way, like these characters just hit no vital organs. So we have Mando, we have Fett going on and trying to go and just try to take down all these characters. But it seems that more and more are coming. So it's just like, oh my god, like this is just never going to end. We have it where Fennec goes on and is to help out the, of course, the biker gang with Drash and Scad. Um, And so she goes on and is to help with all that and take them all down. And then we have Drash that is to thank Fennec afterwards. It's like, oh, manners. And then she drives off to have both the biker gang go and help out Fed and all their people when the numbers start to get back. We also have Black Chrysanthemum that is to make his way back after, I guess, taking down all the Trandoshians. Trandoshian, the Bosk-looking characters, those people, the people that he has had a horrific time with. So we have it where Black Chrysanthemum makes his way back to these people because we of course have it where the Freetown people have their own like gunship, and so they're coming in and they're trying to ford off all these Pike syndicates, and so they have taken a pretty decent number of Pike syndicates out. So now we have to have, of course, Boba Fett going on and trying to take down Cobb Bane, and so we have Cobb Bane who is to fight with Boba Fett, and so it doesn't come out to like a shootout or a western or whatever because technically Fett has that all that armor. So it kind of comes down to a much more close combat like thing, where at the end of all of it we have, of course, it seemed like Cobb Bane has Fett's number, but then all of a sudden Fett is to use this Tusken Raider weapon to go on and stab into Cobb Bane and kill him, which I guess is like the poetic justice of it all about that whole thing with the Tusken Raiders, where it's like, okay, that seems like the coolest weapon to go and kill this guy off with. So so really, here's the thing. So we're probably gonna have like a Boba Fett that like doesn't much look drastically different than any Boba Fett that we've seen before, action figure wise. But they can just go on and just toss in that Tusken Raider little stick action figure thing and make it seem different. Like, oh hey, here's the slightly tweakingly different Boba Fett thing with the Tusken Raider little stick in it, and like that's the difference. Like we're just reselling you the same action figure, but here's the Tusken Raider stick. So, which I have said the name from before, and I'm not going to say it again. Um, the staff, the stick, whichever. So, we go on into this episode, and so now we have it where Pelly is kind of minding her own business, and all of a sudden a X-wing is to show up, and she's like, "Oh my God, who's coming? Oh my God, it's an X-wing! What's going on?" So all of a sudden we think that it's all of a sudden going to be Luke, and Luke is going to somehow like even the odds of Mando and whatever, and we have Luke like chiming in, but like I don't think so. All of a sudden we have R2D2 flying in Grogu. And so all of a sudden Grogu gets out of the ship, and Pelly's like, "Oh my God." She's like, "Oh my God, I miss you." And like she's hugging on to Grogu, and I'm like, "Man, this is kind of cool that we do technically have Grogu who had decided to go along and choose the side of Mando instead of going on and continuing his Jedi training, because then we'll never see him again." But I'm assuming at some point we're probably going to have him possibly come back. I would have to naturally assume, because I think that Grego is going to end up, or Grego is going to be just like Luke, where Luke got a little bit of Jedi training, but then he'll eventually go back and go to Yoda, or what is the Yoda equivalent, which is Luke, and then we'll go on and have Grogu, who gets more Jedi training, uh, to eventually become a Grogu Knight. He won't be a Jedi Knight, he'll be a Grogu Knight, is what I'm assuming is what's going to happen at some point. And he'll have to wear like black freaking, he'll wear a black sack, because it looks like that's all he wears is just these black sacks. So I'm assuming at some point Grogu is going to go back and get like some like a certain kind of training at some point. Um, but it seems like he is to kind of get to know, or he knows a little bit enough to kind of get him through the ending of this episode. So we have at some point where now we have these scorpion droids, these big, massive, shielded droids that, of course, are to be like the droids from the Phantom Menace. Like, you know, the ones that would kind of roll around and then would come out and pop out and kind of like shoot all these heavily things of bullets. We kind of have that version in this movie or in this show, but like it's way bigger. Like it's way more massive. And so we can see, like, oh, so like, but we would be like, wait a minute, why isn't that we haven't seen any of these things in any other thing? Like, you know, we had like 7, 8, and 9 and whatever, and like these scorpion things just don't exist anywhere else? That doesn't make sense to me. But I guess it is what it is with a show. Like, anybody could just say, oh, well, like, those things were only for the Pike Syndicate, and since the Pike Syndicate died, so did the Scorpion droids. It's like, but how like really effective were those Scorpion droids? Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, why would you even need a like? They tried like so much so to try to cut through this thing. We had it where like Mando was trying to use uh his black saber and or his dark saber. He was trying to like cut through it, and it just wasn't going. Like, they try to use everything that they could possibly do to kind of cut through this thing, and it just wasn't working. Uh, so they would just continue to blast at these things, but they're like, if anything, they just had to kind of get away from them because that's all they could really do. So we go on, and everybody's realizing how, like, yeah, there's no way we're gonna be able to like beat these things. We all of a sudden have Mando like meeting up with Peli on this kind of sleigh droid, which I don't know what kind of droid this was, so I'm just gonna call it a sleigh droid because that's what it looks like. It looks like this one droid is kind of schlupping off Peli in the back of this little like sleigh like thing, and they're kind of going off. So Peli has Grogu, and Peli wanted to go and meet up with Mando to give uh, Grogu back to Mando. And so at some point we have it where uh, we have one of these scorpion droids that are kind of chasing after Mando, and it gets to the point where this droid sleigh ends up getting destroyed, and in midair we have Mando grabbing on Grogu, protecting him, and kind of everybody's to kind of like fall out of this sleigh droid and just crash onto the ground. So we have it to where these guys are trying everything to figure out a way, explosives, all kinds of things to try to figure out the weakness of these shields. I know in a lot of video games, when we'd have a shielded character, normally we'd have to like break down the shield so much so, and then the shield would stop working for a temporary time, and then all of a sudden it would boost back up. Like, doesn't quite work in reality or in live action. It's just like, no, doesn't quite work that way. So we finally have it to where Boba Fett has to go on and kind of equal the playing field here. If we have these big, massive scorpion droids, then we have to go and have this Rancor being piloted by Boba Fett, which is going to be the huge toy of the year, right? Rancor Boba Fett. Rancor Boba Fett. So the Rancor is now like squishing these droids like down to the ground, to where it finally does technically break the shielding, to where Mando kind of can run into it and start to take these droids down. And so we even had at one point where Black Chrysanthemum was trying to get his knuckle duster things through this one shield, and it ended up hurting him in the process. And so we had it at one point where Boba Fett was talking to Black Chrysanthemum, and was saying like, "Hey, like you're gonna go into the back to tank after this whole thing is over because I'm really impressed in how like you basically were taking a freaking beating." So so we eventually have it where the Rancor is to uh, crush these Scorpion droids, but then eventually Cod Bane was still alive at that point because we have this all leading to the battle between Fett and Cod Bane. Cod Bane goes on and is to try to douse the Rancor in flames, and so the Rancor after that is to go berserk and is to start to pull a King Kong moment where he's trying to climb the highest building and trying to destroy a bunch of uh, like monuments upon this place. So we go and we have Mando who is trying to take down this Rancor, and he is just getting chucked all over the place. We have it to where at some point the Rancor is almost tempted to eat Mando, but he keeps like banging his helmet on his teeth. So we have it where Peli is telling Grogu, it's like, oh yeah, like Mando will take care of it. And then when like Mando seems to like continue to just get almost eaten, Peli's like, well, maybe I gave him too much credit. So all of a sudden we have Mando who gets chucked, and so we have it where Grogu is to use Grogu's force power to go and have this animal fall to sleep. And then so Grogu goes on and is to fall asleep next to it because, of course, being exhausted from overly using his force power. And I'm sure they're going to make a big deal about that in another season where it's like, oh yeah, like he took a Rancor all down by himself. He's really powerful now. So we have it seemingly where everything has subsided now, to where we go on and we have Finnick, who is to go and find all of the Pike Syndicate leaders and go and murder and take them all down. Whether she's going on and choking the mayor Mock Shays, and going on and killing any number of those tribute guys by one way or the other, going on and stabbing into the Pike Syndicate leader and having everyone be dead. So that kind of covers every single one of their villains, and so the only thing that is probably to be left is to be the spice. Like what exactly they're going to do with all that, if they're going to get rid of it, if they're going to try and sell it themselves so that way they can have their own little profit going on. We'll have to figure that out in the later things. But since everything is to seemingly be wrapped up and all good, we go on and we have both Mando and Grogu who end up flying off in their ship, and so that's kind of how like this season is to wrap up. And so we of course have Fett, who's kind of walking around in town, was kind of mentioning about how his shoulder is kind of messed up. And so, like, Fennec makes a joke of, like, well, you can just go in the back to tank. And he's like, well, it's in use because Black Chrysanthemum is now in there. So, and also, I'm sure there's probably going to be some joke about maybe in the later episodes about, like, hey, there was a Wookiee in here. Like, there's so much hair. Like, can't you guys clean this back to tank? Probably should do that, right? Anyways, so it really kind of feels like they did technically set this up for kind of what these characters are kind of doing next, because I'm assuming the Mandalorian season is probably going to tie those characters back, because like we don't want to forget that these characters would be used. It was kind of interesting that we still had so much dialogue via our Boba Fett character, because I really think that the actor didn't want to like talk as much as he did. Like, man, I wouldn't want to either. Like, I would want to go on and just like, how many lesser lines can I say? Um, because we have it where it's like the leads, like, I think a lot of leads are to immediately think that everyone else is to have a lot of dialogue, and they don't. Uh, because I think for a lot of leads on a lot of shows, they go on and we have a lot of leads who the leads are just kind of there because they're there all day, and so if anything, like a lot of the leads, all they get is just like, well, like sure, yes, dad, or yes, mom, or whatever, like to whoever they're talking to, like yes, sir, yes, ma'am, to whoever they're talking to, like they don't have a huge amount of lines, but they're just there all day. And then sometimes they do have a huge amount of stuff that they need to go on and talk and say and whatever. So like, don't like have me say that leads don't do any work. They do work. It's just that like for them they have to be like for those 16 hours every single day uh, that they're there. They're always there until they desperately are just like, hey man, give me a freaking week off. Like, have it be that you're having like this person who all of a sudden is to have this episode so I can just relax. Because there's some leads who just easily get burnt out on a show, or like, of course, you have a lot of leads who have to do a lot of stuff for the show, and then on top of that, like they have to do a lot of promotion for the show afterwards. So it's just like, God, this never ends. So especially for the off season, it's like a number of like weeks and whatever where you're just kind of like, yeah, I'm gonna go on Conan and I'm gonna go on this show and I'm gonna go on that one and like have to just like really try to sell this show to people. And I'm like, blah, and that would be blah too, because I'm sure you'd have to go through a massive number of like conventions. I don't know if they're still doing conventions right now, but like I'm sure you'd have to go through a mass number of things during an off season. You probably can't enjoy your time. But anyways, I'm going to get out of here. Bye, buddy. Bye, buddy.